I could die any day. That's called knowing my mortality. I'm wondering if anybody is going to hold the cops, DCFS, and judge accountable in the case against me and my son Israel. He is still held hostage by the state of Utah. I'm coming to you with an update about my case. I was falsely accused in November 2020 of many, many things. They accused me of wandering the streets, being homeless, accused my son of being cold, accused me of abuse and neglect. I never neglected or abused my child. I was not homeless. I was not wandering the streets. I've never used drugs. They accused me of being a drug addict. They called me crazy and a drug addict behind my back. I called 911 for assistance. Instead, they kidnapped my son, and I've held him hostage for a year and a half now. He was 3 months old. He's almost 2 years old. I'm going to die one day. I don't know if that's going to happen before or after this case, but I'm wondering if any of you are going to hold the cops in DCFS and Judge Troy Little accountable. Are you going to hold public defenders accountable for not doing their jobs also? I'm going to list off people that are involved. Troy Little, Doug Spencer, Anna Benyon, Ty Beard, Caitlin Esplin, Angie Lake, Officer Bice, Mickelson, McCoy, and others. They need to be held accountable in this lifetime or after I die. Now, I'm aware of my mortality, and I would like to tell each one of you to hold them accountable for the kidnapping of my son. Not a lot of people know what it's like to have their son or daughter kidnapped, but I'm telling you, it's wretched. It is beyond anything that most of you will comprehend. I've been judged up the ass, criticized up the ass. I'm still alive, aren't I? I'm still alive. But one day I will be dead. Not sure how that's going to happen. It could be murder. It could be anything. I want these men and women held accountable. They arrested me. The county attorney, within a week, less than a week and a half later, dropped the charge of child abuse, said there was no evidence, and that there was no probable cause to arrest me. Yet my son has not been returned to me. Now, I want to make you guys aware, in case you have forgotten or didn't know, I want to make you also aware of a law in Utah that says if the father's not involved, he has no right to know his child is being adopted out, also known as selling them out, because children are sold out. When someone gets adopted, they're sold out. You guys need to know the truth about the foster system. They're ripping children away from parents that didn't even abuse and neglect their children. They lie after lie in court cases, paperwork. Go get the trial audios and listen to what the parent says. Listen to what everybody else says and how they attack parents. They don't help parents. They want me to go to therapy, even though I never abused or neglected my son. They also want me to go to therapy, and they were not going to pay for it either. They expect parents to pay $150 an hour to a therapist, by the way, for 4 different therapies. And if a woman was a drug user or homeless or any of that, then aren't you supposed to help that person by putting them in rehab? Or putting them in a place to live? However, America thinks that kidnapping and holding children hostage and separating families, separating children from their parents that they love and adore, America, for some reason, pretends that that's okay and that's moral and ethical. Well, only some people are allowed to have children and raise their children, and other people aren't allowed to because they've been lied about. Not allowed to hug my child, kiss my child, hold my child. Lies, perjury, slander, defamation, libel. But people pretend these are not crimes. You guys are pretending that kidnapping is not a crime, holding hostage is not a crime, and that Slander, lying, perjury, kidnapping. You guys, why is that you're pretending that that's not a crime? What about hate crime, discrimination? What about the constitutional rights, security, freedom, peace, happiness that's being walked all over with me and my son? Why is everybody turning a blind eye? Why is everybody blind, deaf, and dumb to this case? Yes, I have a lot of questions for all of you. I called for assistance. I was not helped. They separated my son instead. I have still never received the help that I deserve. I'm also not allowed to get child support because he's not in my possession. I can't get child support either, or paternity testing done for free either. You know, I'd have to be charged $300 to have his father prove that he's the father. It's really fucked up that in America, a woman needs to pay for paternity. Why is that? Abortion's literally free in America. They can get pills for free, birth control for free, but yet paternity is $300? Why is that? Why is that, America? Why aren't any of you thinking about any of this? Not one person in the government helped me with COVID money, child support, with money for therapy. Yet they want me to do therapy. And because if I don't do therapy, I'm not allowed to have my kid back. It's no different than any other kidnapping that has gone on in this world that they make movie after movie about. Where the government takes a child and holds them hostage and says, we want $5 million. This is no different, but instead they want you to go to therapy. And saying, we're going to hold your child until you go to therapy. Or until you do this and this and this. And nobody turned a blind eye. And people pretend that this is acceptable and normal and moral and ethical. Did not commit a crime, but yet her child is not returned to her. How come there are no riots, no protests? Why not? My son and I don't matter, and why is that? Discrimination? Hate crime? Let's pretend that that's not existing. Because yes, it does 100% exist, and that's exactly what is going on. Everybody's apathetic, lazy, don't care, don't give a shit. Discrimination, hate crime. It's a lot of other things, isn't it, too? A lot of other people are lying about me and my son. They need to be held accountable. And you will be held accountable one day. Whether that's in this life or the next life. Or after your death. People will be held accountable. My son and I are suffering because of other people's sins and crimes. Other people's. And that might include you who's watching this. And I'm talking about a lot of people. And I'm sure some people who are guilty of this are going to be watching this. Enough is enough of the bullshit of you being a psychopath. Why are we letting psychopaths run this nation? Why are we letting psychopaths separate families? Are you going to pretend they're not mentally ill, that they're not narcissistic and psychopathic? The government? Your judges have immunity. Troy Little is allowed to call people child abusers that never abused and neglected their children. And you don't find fault with this? You don't find a problem with this, America? Utah, Cedar City? You really don't find a problem with this? And why is that? Why is that? Ask yourself. And you're going to pretend that trials and court cases are fair if you don't have $10,000 for a lawyer? You're going to pretend they present all the witnesses and all the audios and videos? All the evidence? You're going to pretend that's happening? You're going to pretend you know about trials even though most people have never been in a courtroom before? Truth is powerful, isn't it? So powerful. You're trying to kidnap a child and sell him out. And you have to lie about a woman and her child to try to kidnap him because you're intimidated, jealous, possessive. A lot of things. Greedy. Because you're selfish, self-absorbed. If America cared about children, they wouldn't be lying about them and their parents. People would be holding the people accountable who are doing this kind of bullshit to parents and children all across the nation. So many people pretend they know about DCFS cases, yet they know nothing about them. The police were allowed to lie, and DCFS were allowed to lie about me. The judge was allowed to lie about me, and none of them are being held accountable. None of them have been arrested or thrown in jail. Why is that? Why is that?